Live from London, this is Talk Women.
Hello and welcome to Talk Women, the show where women don't hold back. We're loud, we're bold, and we are real. I'm Alex Phillips.
And I'm Samara Gill, and yes, we are the women who speak up, speak loud, and love stirring the pot with the woke crowd.
Coming up on today's show, we're going to be discussing whether women should have women-only carriages on trains. Now, this follows a petition launched in Paris in response to a series of incidents on the city's transport network.
Also, is the UK trying to get rid of the word Christmas? Britons are enraged over Tesco's decision to rename Christmas trees as evergreen trees. And Tony's Chocolate has decided to call their Christmas advert calendar the Countdown Calendar. What are these so-called woke companies afraid of?
And wait for it. A transgender athlete has been stripped of the title of the world's strongest woman, you'd never guess why, after reportedly failing to disclose that she was a man.
So we begin the show by discussing whether women should have better protection on trains in the UK.
Yeah, like I said, this comes after a petition was launched in Paris demanding the creation of women-only carriages on the city's underground and overground network.
This initiative comes after the attempted rape of a woman on a train by a man. The horrifying assault was caught on video and circulated online.
It's the latest in a long line of many incidents on the Paris transport network. In March this year, a government report revealed that 7 in 10 women in the Greater Paris region have suffered some form of abuse while travelling.
In 2024, there were 3,374 victims of sexual violence on France's public transport system, an increase of 86% on 2016.
I wonder why. Now, ladies, why is this sort of behaviour happening? I mean, is it something that you ladies face every day? And should we actually have something like women-only carriages? Layla, what do you reckon?
I don't think we should have women-only carriages. I think then you give up on law and order, and that's not the British way. I think we have imported men here who don't respect women, who feel that women are there for the taking. As a criminal prosecutor, I actually prosecuted a lot of sexual offences on the train, and it goes from the serious to the less serious, but of course it's all serious. You know, a man just siding up to you, rubbing himself against you. I actually had someone follow a woman masturbating on a bridge. And then he said, actually, you know, I have a condition which requires me to have my penis out.
That
was his defence.
What's that condition called?
Yeah. That was his defence, and I kid you not, it's a true story, but luckily he managed to keep it in while we were in court. But I think what we need to do, number one, is better policing on platforms, and we need to just stop allowing men into this country who see women as something to be taken and something to be abused. And this has come as a result of an increase in people arriving on boats from certain countries, from the Middle East. I think that man who tried to rape the woman is Egyptian. And listen, my parents are from Egypt, and they're not all like that. But, you know, there are men from the Middle East and from Egypt who see women as game.
I mean, Alison, you've written a lot about this. And when you look at the increase, over 80% in a period of basically 10 years, and I was like, oh, I wonder what's gone on here. We all know, don't we?
Yeah, we really know. So they try to suppress the statistics, but Afghan men proportionally are 22 times more likely than a native-born British man to commit sexual offences. That's, you know, so that's the thing. I agree with Layla. I really don't like this idea of women-only carriages on trains because it subtly puts the responsibility on women and it's a slippery slope. So it'll be, maybe you should segregate yourself in a woman-only. Maybe, you know, maybe tone down what you're wearing. I live in Essex and there's an RAF base near there with lots of these asylum seekers. And my friend's daughter was told, the girls, teenagers walking to school, were told to take another way and maybe don't kind of like have your skirts up so short. So what we're going to have, Alex, we're going to have British women being told, just you change your behaviour. No, we don't want these people. We don't want these, you know, what's the technical term for scumbag? We don't want scumbags in our country predating on girls. Many years ago now, I was in a carriage and and a man who felt that he had to, couldn't possibly, had a medical condition that meant he had to reveal his penis. And I was on my own in this carriage with him, and it's pretty...
terrifying.
I was like, I'll always remember waiting, when is the next stop? When is the next stop? When I could shoot out of the door. It's really horrible. But it wouldn't have mattered if I'd been in a woman-only carriage. They think these kind of guys aren't going to come into a woman-only carriage. And often on trains or on the tube, it's the tunnel walks that are the scary bit, isn't it, really? So I really, really don't think women, how dare they say to women, you get segregated. Oh, maybe don't go into a mixed swimming pool. Maybe have single-sex bathing. You can see how it goes, can't you?
Yeah, because
Totally,
sorry to interrupt.
No.
We don't segregate men and women in this country.
No, we don't.
Absolutely not. That is not a British norm. And if harassment happens on public transport, then you deal with the offenders.
Oh,
And
yes,
you stop
Sadiq
them.
Khan putting up his posters,
Yeah.
don't stare at people. I'm like, oh, great,
yeah.
that's going to work, isn't it?
We live in a lawless country, and, there's already been a litany of issues that happen when we do try and segregate men and women. Men would like to then become women. I can only think, obviously this has happened in Japan, Middle East, parts of India as well, that have massive issues. They've had to segregate, and I also don't agree that we should be segregating because it's us then bowing down to the dangers, which a lot of the time, yes, we have imported. We do, obviously. Britain has we have our own sex offenders. We just don't need to import them, and I think that is where the issue goes. And
One thing that I think is I wish our men would do more. Because I've been in situations where I've had a guy following me down the street. It was middle of the day, and he was following me, like, really close to me, and I was on the phone to my mum, and, and I started walking down my street, and he was still following me, like, really close, trying to get my attention. And in the end, I sort of started walking down my street and did a loop, because I thought, OK, I don't want him to know where I live. And I bumped into my neighbour's son, and I was like, oh, great, I just wanted to see you. And he sort of gave me a weird look, and I'm like, but men must see this going on sometimes. I mean, not always. I always think with sexual harassment, a lot of men probably won't see it because men don't come and approach a woman when she's with men, but they must see some of this stuff happening, and they don't do anything. I actually wish our own men would say, leave her alone,
The problem is, if a man comes up to that person and says, leave her alone, and he pushes him, he'll be arrested for assault. The man who
that's so true.
literally, because assault, basically you can be charged with assault just for putting someone in fear of violence. So yes,
Really?
yes.
Do you
So
remember
there's
there
battery. There's battery where you punch someone, and then there's common assault where you just put someone in fear. So he could come and he said, "Oh my God, I was so scared he was going to hit me." He intimated, and he'll be charged for it. So we don't protect people like that.
We did see recently a guy on a train had pulled his pants down, and there were some British guys did go and get him to pull his pants up and so on. And then, of course, as Laila said, exactly, predictably,
right, there you go.
Using undue force against a poor man, having a mental health episode. Well, they're always having a mental health episode, aren't they? The fact that they actually, I thought, I was so cheered to see them.
Yes.
And not long ago, I was talking to some American audience about the rape gangs, mainly Pakistani origin rape gangs. And afterwards, an American guy came up to me and he said, Miss Pearson, where were the British men when this was happening? And that really struck me. He said, in America, they'd have been round with... And in fact, it's really interesting, actually, that when some of this rape stuff started with kids, there were Sikh girls being targeted, and the Sikh men picked up baseball bats and went and fought out in the street. And I think Laila's right. I think a lot of white British men or other ethnicities are pretty intimidated now because they know we have a two-tier justice system where any protected characteristic person, so the police are now taught that they police for protected characteristics, which basically doesn't mean regular British guys.
We do have sexual offenders, numbers have gone up massively from the nations that come on boats. Way more than British sexual offenders. In the past few years, you've seen a massive rise in foreign offenders causing sexual offence, and they do correlate to the number, to the nation, people coming from different countries on boats. And like you say, Samara, no one's denying that we have homegrown British sexual offenders.
Yeah, and you're most likely to be assaulted by someone close to you. Those are the stats, but it's these random attacks.
That's a whole different thing.
That's a whole different stat.
We don't need to bring these people in. And those people, if you're charged with a sexual offence here, you go on the sexual offenders register for life most of the time. So you can look it up. There is some oversight. But the men coming over, they could be sexual offenders there. They could be serial rapists. We'll never know. And that unknown is such a big risk. And any government would take that unknown into account when housing them. But they don't.
But there's a significant proportion of these people breaking into the country illegally who are doing it because they've committed a crime. They are trying to evade justice and evade the law, so they move to a different country.
I did a very brave lady who works in asylum system, caseworker. I called her Nikki, and she got in touch because she's got 3 little girls of her own, and she said, they're obliged to grant asylum to people. They can't turn down anyone from Afghanistan, Eritrea, Sudan, or Kuwait. And Syria used to be on that list until recently. And she said, I just think it's a matter of time before I turn on the TV news and I see some guy I've granted asylum to has raped or murdered a girl like mine. And one of the most shocking things, Samara and Alex, that she said to me was that she has been told to grant asylum to men who they know have exposed themselves in children's playgrounds. And if they haven't got a 12-month sentence, they have to wave them through. And she has objected and said, this guy's a wrong one, can't do this at all. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, Nikki, we'll get someone else to do it.
Alison, but the problem is we have legislation that only allows you to deport them once they've committed an offence that triggers a 12-month or over sentence. So we are sitting ducks. Right? Yeah. And you saw the sexual offender in Epping, he was deported to Ethiopia immediately. So we don't need a returns agreement when there's a political will, but we have to effectively wait for them to commit a serious crime before they're deported. It is madness.
But she also said, she said there are, again, I was so chilling, there are guys on rape charges, right?
Wow.
Who they've got. How many British people know that known perverts are basically exposing themselves in front of children are being granted asylum? We don't want these people.
Why are they doing this?
When you travel around the world, because I've been to a lot of various countries, and you go to certain countries. I love visiting Morocco, for example. It's one of my favourite countries. I would never walk around Marrakesh by myself. That would just be inviting issues. The last time I was there with my then other half, we sort of, a gap formed between us in the souks. We kind of lost touch with each other just for a fleeting moment. A man came just like right between my legs. And you just think, this isn't being unpleasant about Moroccans. I know plenty of wonderful Moroccans, but there's a culture. There is a culture there where there are certain men, and it's a significant proportion of them, see especially a sort of Western woman, and blonde hair to me is always an indicator of, follow me, I'm clearly, a porn star. And they have
that's how we all basically think of you.
Yeah, but no, but
nice good TV media career on the side, but
exactly.
It's mainly the
when you do look at, thing is that when you do look at, well, not that I look at pornography, but when you think of the big porn stars in the UK, whether it's Bonnie Blue or Lily Phillips, there's a look, there's the blonde-haired look, and so I do think men from other cultures kind of think, oh well, that's what Western women are like,
But it's been suppressed because I think it was probably 2017 New Year. You may remember in Cologne, New Year's Eve celebration in Cologne, and there was this. I don't know. Laila might know the word. There's a word which means rush, where all these migrant men rushed women in the centre of Cologne, and it was a notorious episode.
1,250 sex assaults, all by North African and Middle Eastern men.
Absolutely horrendous. And I wrote about it. I remember Nigel Farage commenting on it. And those of us who dared to comment on it, it was, oh, that's terribly racist. And this is how they silence it. So more and more, as you say, spiralling sexual violence, horrible for women to have to wander around. But it's, you go and sit in a woman-only carriage, love, and you'll be fine. That's they don't want to say these guys are incompatible with a Western liberal way of life, which is clear because if we look at the way the Taliban are treating women in Afghanistan at the moment, well,
liberal.
It's
so bad.
Don't speak out of doors. They're going to fit in beautifully, aren't they? In Talk Women. Imagine some of them in here.
It's to the point where apparently they've said that you can only show one eye now when you're wearing your burqa. Two is too many. Yes, that's genuinely true.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But that article with that whistleblower was just harrowing, and we need to continue to keep keep putting light on journalists like you who are bringing this truth into, the sunlight is the best disinfectant for this sort of thing. So, no, we won't be going and segregating ourselves and contorting ourselves into different carriages. Thank you very much. I think the men are the ones who need to change.
But there was an admission, because when that Telegraph piece appeared, the Home Office issued a statement and said, we don't recognise the fact that we are obliged these people to give asylum to Afghans. You think, well, that's a lie. We know that's a lie. And then they said, well, in future we will be taking steps to make sure that sex offenders aren't given asylum. So I thought, you're admitting that that's what's happening now, right? Which is deep. That should be incredibly upsetting to everyone, right? Shouldn't it?
And a lot of the sex offenders that I prosecuted within London are effectively asylum seekers or / illegal migrants. Because, you bring them, they come from a village in the Middle East and it's totally different. And then they're housed in the middle of London or in the middle of a town where women are free and we can look how we want and we don't expect to be harassed or sexually assaulted. And they're like, what the hell is this? It's a real problem.
Women and children, they continue to get sacrificed on the sort of altar of mass migration and open borders.
Absolutely.
And we just need to stop it. We're at breaking point. And that article that you wrote, genuinely, after I read that, I was like, we just need to stop everything.
I was so angry when I read that article.
Yeah, it was infuriating.
I was really angry. I was like, how dare they?
Well, when I went to interview her, I obviously can't give any details because she'd lose her job. And she said, you're going to be really shocked. And I kind of thought, no, I'm a journalist. I was, after about half an hour, I was like, oh my God, this is horrendous, right? It's much worse than anything we know.
The winner of the world's strongest woman contest has been disqualified, yet you know why, because they were born a man and failed to declare it. Would you believe it?
American Jamie Booker beat Great Britain's Andrea Thompson to victory at the event in Arlington, Texas. But Booker was stripped of the title after a row broke out over the winner's true biological sex and whether it had been declared to official strongman, the competition organisers. Here's a clip of Jamie winning the contest with a very unhappy Andrea Thompson watching.
Now, I am proud to say that we are going to be joined by someone who fights for fairness in women's sport. The brilliant, the fantastic, the inimitable former Olympian Sharron Davies, who is also the CEO of the Women's Sports Union. Now, Sharron, my goodness, we had the Supreme Court ruling in the UK. There's been a lot of noise about this. I thought that the Olympics Committee had said, right, that's it. We're not going to have women in men's sports. And then you've got all these other sports who are still allowing it to happen. And something like weightlifting or World's Strongest Woman. I mean, you're going to have a clear advantage if you're a man.
Absolutely, absolutely. What a feisty panel you lot are. It's really good to actually join you all. I mean, I know it sounds silly, but sometimes these type of things are really good for us because it just wakes so many people up to how utterly ridiculous this was and is. I think we saw the boxing last year in Paris, and people were horrified that a man was being put in a boxing ring against biological females. And it's the same here. This person who I think it's just his spelling, right? Or he wants to call himself Jamie. So he's 6'5" and 400 pounds. And what lovely Andrea said as she got off that podium was, this is all bull poo, different word. And so everybody knew during that competition. So it's disingenuous for the organisers to say that they were unaware, because there is no way that all the competitors knew and they didn't know. But then there was an awful lot of kerfuffle, a lot of talk on social media. And then, of course, eventually they started to contact this individual and found out that, yes, they were biologically male. But I think it was probably quite obvious throughout the competition, and they were prepared to go along with it. And this is the problem that we've got. The organisers just have no backbone. They're total cowards. The IOC throw women's rights away 10 years ago against all of the science. And yes, you mentioned that, they seem to be turning around. But if you want my honest opinion, they're turning around because Trump is saying, I will not allow cheating in women's sport in LA. And so therefore they've got to abide by that situation. So, they're being pulled kicking and screaming to a position where they protect women's sport.
I just don't understand where all of this stuff came from, Sharron. Like, when did you first start detecting that men were saying they're women and entering various sporting competitions?
So in 1998, the IOC polled its elite female athletes to say, do you want sex screening to carry on? 82% said, yes, I do. Yes, we do. Very much emphatic. They stopped it. So they don't listen to their elite female athletes. I mean, I was sex screened in 1976. It's a cheek swab to the inside of your cheek. It takes 10 seconds. It's done once in your lifetime because human beings cannot change their biological sex, and you never have to have it again. And, you know, if you're prepared to go to the Olympics and have WADA, world anti-doping testing, which is way more intrusive, believe me, there is no way that that is an intrusive test in any shape or form. So that's a bogus argument for starters. And that would sort the problem out. So we're trying very hard to bring that in. World Aquatics haven't quite brought it in yet, but World Track and Field has, boxing has now, and I think downhill skiing has. But what we do need is across the board, really. We need to protect the female category. And if this is the only way we can do it, it's a sensible and easy solution. And then we can say, right, we need an open and inclusive category, because of course everyone should be allowed to compete. I've never wanted anyone ever to be not able to be involved in sport. But this, Jamie Booker wants to identify as being a biological woman, is not a biological woman. So therefore must be able to dress however they want, call themselves whatever they want, but take part in the open category, which would be against other males, where they would be very mediocre.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, Sharron, it's very rare for us to see a woman or a biological woman sort of identifying as a male in male wrestling. Is there it never happens for some reason. I really wonder why.
Surprise. I know. So the UN released a report in 2024, so now 18 months old. And at that particular time, they had 600 examples of women losing medals at major international events to people that were biologically male. There is not one example of a male losing an major international event to a biological female. And in Paris, when we saw Khalifa, doing that awful thing in the boxing ring, we also had a Filipino woman, female, who identified as a trans man, who carried on and competed in the women's category, which nobody has a problem with, providing they're not taking illegal testosterone, of course, because then that would make it unfair. So women don't care what you call yourselves as long as it's a level playing field. So if women can do that, I don't really understand why men can't do that.
Sharron, have you suffered a lot of abuse because of fighting for women's rights to have their own sporting categories?
Yeah, very much. It's why Tracy Edwards and I decided we'd set up the Women's Sports Union, and we wanted something which would fight for women's voices because they've just been ignored. I mean, I've had, like all of you, I've had death threats and, threats to my kids, and I've had trans activists target all my work. They make it extremely difficult just to have a fair and logical argument, which the vast majority of the general public actually agree with. And what I find most disappointing with all of this is the lack of backbone from the people that run our sports and run our organisations to fold the way that they have done. Whenever we poll, the vast majority, in the 80, 85, 90% will say, yes, women should have fair and safe sport that's just for biological females. And yet here we still are. 34 sports in the UK still do not protect the female category.
Wow. It's also the media, though, that continues to push this narrative. I mean, we saw in the dossier that the Telegraph basically revealed that it was also within the BBC a bit of I would say an intifada of people that were pushing a pro-trans movement. Now, what do you say to that? Because I do feel like the media has also had a massive part to play in pushing this ideology. Even when Iman Khalif was at the height of her success within the Olympics just a year ago, they were saying, Russia, 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 it's a hoax, this is fake news, it's a biological woman. We find out the truth a year later, and we've all been gaslit into thinking that, maybe this was some sort of fake news thing. So what do you say to that? Do you think the media has had a part to play in all this sporting fury?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank goodness for you guys and for GB News, Telegraph, the Times. We actually have, in this country, we've been pushing back way more than they do in a lot of other parts in the world. That's why we get called Turf Island all the time. Well done to a lot of you girls out there, saying your bit. But we just have to keep pushing, don't we? I mean, the BBC have probably been one of the worst offenders. Since 2000, when we took out sex screening, Athletics can show that 134 males have been involved in world athletics on the Olympic stage, all right? And that is DSD. So we have to explain that DSD obviously is very different in the fact that this is something where a young male has been observed as being a female at birth because their genitalia is internal. And so therefore they've been picked up and they've gone, oh, it must be a little girl, off you go. But actually they're biologically male. They're going through a male puberty. They have a DSD, a difference of sexual development, that only actually applies to someone that's biologically male. And that is what we have seen absolutely dominate in track and field. And that's what Khalifa has. That's not a transgender athlete. That is not someone who was born male, told they were male, lived their life younger as a male, and then later on decided they wanted to change their identity. But the end result is exactly the same. You know, someone who's biologically male, with the advantage that that brings, is in a sport for females. And that's why sex screening is so important, because that sorts out the problem from both angles, really. And the media have been unbelievably complacent in it. I mean, in fact, only yesterday they were still referring to this Jamie Booker as, you know, she was disqualified from the women's, you know, strongest woman competition. It's not a she. The whole reason that she's been disqualified is because she's biologically male, not because she's a she. And that's why you confuse the general public hugely. Caster Semenya again, you know, even with court cases and the actual documents in the court telling us that this was a biological male with a 5ARD DSD, the BBC was still saying a female with unusual levels of testosterone, which was totally inaccurate. This is a biological male with normal male levels of testosterone. And so the general public were just gaslit and confused. And we've had to push back so hard just to get the truth out. And that's, you know, it's been deliberate misrepresentation in a lot of cases.
Sharron, even you have the EHRC guidance that just came out and the Supreme Court, and yet you read that report has been on Bridget Phillipson's desk for 3 months. Yeah. And I'm just reading here, she won't back it. Well, she hasn't backed it yet because she fears political backlash. And one of her aides, or as a minister, said, actually, it's a really difficult subject. That's why it's taking so long. And so you have a government that's too scared of their own activists to defend women as well. And this is the government for the next 4 years. The guidance is clear.
We saw a budget where they were frightened of their backbenchers, right? So they're petrified of their backbenchers. They're petrified of LGBT activists that are inside of the government. And that's what this problem is. So let me just read what the guidance, which slipped out, as we know, it was leaked. It says sex-based rules in sport must be applied strictly on the basis of biological sex. This is the guidance that wasn't actually been published yet. And if it's not enforced, that is indirect sex discrimination. That's what that guidance says. Now, the law already says all of this, all right? So if we take these organisations to court, we will win, because that's what the law already says. As we know, the guidance is just the guidance. It's not the law. It's a simplified version of what the Supreme Court, clarified in February earlier this year. April earlier this year. And that's not being applied.
But Sharron, as you know, the Be Kind Brigade are really brutal, right? So let me tell you, as a journalist, I always insist on using the correct pronouns, including I wrote a piece about someone called a pregnant man. And I said, you don't have the things that you need to get pregnant, uterus, vagina, and all those useful things. And all the pronouns were changed in my article. And I then said, lots of the Telegraph readers said, hang on, why are you saying this is a man? And as they do with lots of the other coverage of the sport, as you've just said with the jammy male person. And the truth is, Sharron, is that they're very, very aggressive activist lobby groups. And what they do is they bombard the media organisations with hostile legal threats.
Which they don't follow through with, do they? As we know.
But what happens is that the organisations find it easier to go along with. They'll just think, they'll say to someone like me, oh, there's no harm. Can't you just call him she? And I'll say, absolutely not. But then they'll say, we'll get, Ofcom or one of the many quangos will come in and create a huge amount of admin that they don't want to be bothered with. I'm just telling you, this is what happens.
I know, I absolutely know. And that's what we found in sport. So for a long time, as we know, Stonewall were deliberately misrepresenting the Equality Act. And they were telling sporting bodies that this is what they should do. And if they didn't do it, they would take them to court. Now, they never did. And we had, for example, British Triathlon, who straight away said, no, we're not doing this. We're going to protect the female category and we're going to create an open category. And they were one of the first organisations that did it. and they were never taken to court because Stonewall knew they couldn't win in court. But they were all these organisations were taking the route of least resistance. Yeah, and of course, when you're dealing with young people, they're not in a position where they can say, I'm going to take you to court. You know, no 16, 17-year-old girl is going to say to the FA, I'm going to take you to court because you're not. And I even had parents that were reporting to me that their 15-year-old daughters were self-harming because they were being made to play against boys and they were all getting injured. God. They were losing by huge scores, which was demoralising them terribly. And I said, so why do all the other fathers feel the same way? And he said to me, yes, we do. So I said, well, why don't you just all come together and remove your daughters and say you won't do this en masse? And he went, oh, I can't do that, my daughter would get picked on. And I just think, oh my God, so you're going to let your daughter carry on being self-harmed? I cannot understand the power that's been allowed to be applied, you know, with a total lack of law and common sense. I still don't understand how we're here. You know, how can we ever turn around and say that it's okay to allow someone who is male to just self-identify into competitions and sports for women and girls and think it is fair to women and girls? What happens is girls self-exclude because they just don't want to be put in that position. You know, when women stop going to the changing room where they know there's going to be a man lurking in the corner watching them, they just stop going.
Sharron, honestly, the tentacles of this trans movement are so dark and insidious when you really look into it. And you know, in schools, they try to get the children from the very start. I mean, you could really get into how they're trying to infiltrate a lot of these communities. But just our changing rooms, just a basic, you know, I've been dealing with the Darlington nurses.
What we must tell everybody and everyone that's watching, right, it is the law. It is the law for you to say, you cannot be in my changing room, you cannot be in my toilet, you cannot be in my sport. So find that backbone for our daughters, our sisters, our mums, and men out there watching, support us because, you know, we need to have our rights back. We need to have our voice back because at the moment it is being squashed all around the world and not just in Afghanistan, you know, where I support those incredible women who are literally being treated worse than dogs at the moment. But here in the UK as well, you know, it's going in the wrong direction.
But let's not forget, Keir Starmer said he didn't know what a woman was. He said a woman could have a penis. So
well,
you have a leader.
I think he said 98%.
Yeah. 98% of women. So I mean,
please, the 1% of the vote.
I mean, you know, and the thing is, I just want to be clear. It's not about transphobia at all. Be whatever you want. I don't judge you. It's about biology, number one, basic boundaries,
it's about
women's
reality,
safety, and like you say, common sense.
Yeah.
Sharron Davies. Sharron, thank you so much for joining us. If you're on Turf Island, I think we all want a one-way ticket there.
United Turfdom.
What a legend. Thank you. Brilliant. That is the great Sharron Davies.
OK, ladies, brace yourself because this one might make your blood boil hotter than mulled wine. Tesco is under fire for rebranding its Christmas trees as evergreen trees. Apparently, even the trees are too controversial now.
And Tesco's not alone. Tony's Chocolate is also being accused after naming their Christmas advent calendar the Countdown Calendar. We've even got a clip from our own talk presenter, Kevin O'Sullivan. And let's just say he wasn't so impressed. Let's take a look.
What is this, you know, this fear of the word Christmas? Because I'll tell you what makes me laugh about it. We know what's going on. All these corporations, they're kind of trying to sort of preempt criticism, preempt the horror of people who aren't Christians, as if every Muslim that walks past Tesco's or every Jew that buys a bar of chocolate or, you know, is going to go, oh my God, look, they've called that Christmas tree. I'm so offended. Oh, look, they've called it a Christmas advent calendar. I'm horrified. It's pathetic, isn't it?
The lovely producer Dean went out and bought the Tony's chocolate. I actually think it's quite... If you gave this to someone, Choco Lonely, is that not a bit offensive? Like, oh, you know, no one likes you. You're by yourself. Here you go. Have some non-Christmas advent calendar
that's why
chocolate.
No one likes you, because you don't want Christmas on your advent.
Where did this come from? I mean, look, I'm a Christian. Right, and Christmas is a big sort of stupid commercial thing now. It's, you know, no one really talks about Jesus being born in a manger anymore, other than those of us who go to church. But why on earth has it got to the stage that, I don't know, as a country, we're actually erasing the concept of Christianity actively? Like, what the hell is going on?
Because before, if you came to Britain, like when my parents came in the 60s, you came and you valued our cultures and our traditions. And that was the leadership that we had. Right now, the leadership is actually keep your head down, don't be too British, and we've got to adapt to the different cultures that are coming. And that's why multiculturalism has failed, because we're trying to adapt to different types of cultures. But we need to be under a united umbrella of British values and British cultures, and we shouldn't fade away from that. But that's what's happening. You know, we can only bring our flag out during the World Cup, and then you hide it, right, and pretend, keep your head down, don't offend anyone, don't be too British. And that's the problem. I love going to America. The flag's everywhere.
But Alison, the thing is, like, we are constantly being pushed to celebrate everybody else's religion,
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
I lost my absolute nut when they put Ramadan lights up on Regent Street. I was like, what are you doing? It is Easter for a start. We're not a Muslim country. Take them down. Now, I don't mind people having their own religion and praying to whatever God they want, but this is a Christian nation. And I think it is utterly egregious when you can beat down on Jesus, but, oh, no, we've all got to celebrate, you know, whether it's Rama or Allah or, you know, whatever else, or we've all got to get involved with that.
It's partly, I think, because the left is aggressively secular and atheist. And what they really like is any traditions except our own. I mean, that's basically it. And as Laila said, you know, God forbid you should have an England flag, you know, but let's fly Palestine flag or whatever. And the great tragedy is we're even seeing it in schools because, as everyone knows, you grow up, and I've got 2 kids, I mean, they're older now, but the nativity play, I mean, it's one of the great joys, you know, of being a parent is, you know, my son was cast as God one year, and which was very good typecasting, and he was up on a high sort of ladder with a sort of sparkly star, which he was using the light from above to bounce light off the headmaster's bald head, which I always remember.
Exactly what God
so
would do.
those memories of, you know, were you Mary, were you a sheep, and all kids of all backgrounds, all ethnicities, just loving it, right? Yes. That's our tradition, and Little Donkey and so on. It's so moving and lovely. And the idea now that it's got to be Peppa Pig instead of the Virgin Mary, I mean, you know, they should know these foundational stories and texts. They're very precious. They're things that grandparents can share, and parents and children, and then you pass it on. But all of that now is being wiped out, and it's like a desecration of our culture, isn't it?
I mean, we celebrated Christmas from the moment my parents stepped foot on this country. We've always celebrated Christmas, and we're not Christian. You know, and the problem is, sorry, Samara, to interrupt, but basically we've told newcomers, you don't have to adapt to our values. The country's going to adapt to yours. And that is why multiculturalism is failing.
Yeah, I think this adaptation is really important. I think assimilation is what's missing right now. And, you know, these communities are so siloed off, and then we're the ones who have to continue to try and pander to all their needs. And it's not right. I mean, we are a Church of England country, and I think that actually that Christian tolerance has been taken for weakness, to be honest. And we've been almost too gratuitous with how much we want to give over and how much of ourselves we want to erase as a country because of that. Because it's actually quite inherent to the Christian faith to be like that, but it's just been trodden on. It's been completely rolled over, to be honest.
I think it's actually even worse than where we've got to so far in this discussion, because I'm beginning to see, you know, active, I'd say, persecution of Christians. We know it's happening around the world, and the media isn't covering the genocide going on in places like Nigeria. But even in this country, when you have Christian street preachers, the police are coming and nicking them. Yeah. It's like, oh my gosh, you know, the sort of guy wearing the sandwich board going, the end is nigh, repent, is part of like the fabric of society in the UK. Like, bring them back. But this whole idea that Christianity is offensive, like what is that?
Well, at the end of the day, all this represents is not to go, you know, big picture, but it is about capitalism, it is about money, and they're not even thinking ideologically when they do this. They're just thinking, okay, how do I pander to everyone at the same time? And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. It's a slippery slope, is it not? When we start making these little changes to words, we're never going to get that back again. We're not going to go back. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, but as Laila says, most people don't object. In fact, they're, you know, I mean,
that's what I mean.
My friend who's the biggest Christmas person is Jewish and just has more decorations and baubles and has no trouble with it at all.
Yeah,
so I think what this is, a lot of these companies, they've got these, it's often white, privately educated males who are woker than woke, and they think, oh, let's banish any reference to the little baby Jesus.
I love the fact that on the back they're saying they want to end exploitation in cocoa, and they sort of bang on about traceable beans. Guess what? If you go to West Africa, there's a lot of Christians there, Tony.
But you know, by the way, go woke and go broke. I'm not buying that advent calendar.
I'm going to eat it, though.
Yeah, I'll eat
We're gonna
it.
eat that
But I'm
thing
not going to
right
pay
now.
for it.
Alex, we're not eating chocolate that's not got Advent on the calendar. No,
It did say the word Christmas on the back in small print.
I'll eat any
I saw it.
chocolate, to be honest.
There is an evergreen tree.
Right, ladies, we got to wrap. We've run out of time, but what a fantastic show we've had. Thanks so much again to the gorgeous and brilliant Laila Cunningham, Allison Pearson, and of course, the exceptional Sharron Davies. We'll see you all next time.